So welcome to Emotional Intelligence, and today we've got Narayan joining us, and he's going to describe an aspect of his journey with learning emotional intelligence skills and how he used it in a real world situation and that appeared to be heading in the direction of conflict or a lot of upset, but made a big difference in terms of how he approached it. So, Narayan, welcome, and please tell us your story.
Thanks, Herbert. Yeah, pleasure to be here with you and sharing my experiences with emotional intelligence. A particular scenario springs to mind when I was recently out having a drink with a couple of friends, and we were inside a pub, and there was a gentleman who we didn't know that seemed to be a little bit incoherent and had just sort of made his way in off the street. And I don't know if he even knew that he was in a pub. I'm not really sure if he was totally in touch with reality. But yeah, he had the appearance of being homeless. And I guess me and my friends were doing our automatic, immediate best to ignore him, much like the rest of the people in the pub. So he seemed to just be on his own, yelling out and at no one in particular. And he was in a corner and seemed to be quite distressed and just sort of doing his own thing. And I'd been learning some NVC skills and having a bit of a focus in around emotional intelligence for the last few years. So I've started to recognize opportunities to utilize those skills in day-to-day life outside of my close relationships with myself and with others that are immediately around me. And so I had a bit of a light bulb moment go off in my head at this opportunity to potentially interact with this person. There was a little bit of a internal interest in me to put myself into a situation of potential conflict and potential extreme conflict. This person could have been at the time but potentially violent. I didn't know for sure, but I kind of made my best judgment and decided to engage with him, and we started a conversation. He came over to speak to me, and within the first minute of dialogue back and forward, I noticed an opportunity to show him some empathy for something that he appeared to be needing. And yeah, I went ahead and took that opportunity, and he was yelling out about a bit incoherently about something to the tune of some people had come and taken away the land of his family, and he was feeling quite distressed about it. I wasn't sure whether it was a real situation or not, but I could see that he was certainly needing some support and some empathy. And so I sprang back at him quickly in a very empathetic manner, just to say, "Oh, that must be really difficult for you." And yeah, I just noticed an immediate shift in his physiology. He sort of just looked me in the eye and just became overcome with, I guess, a sense of being heard and being understood. And no one in this entire pub was paying any attention to him, and in fact, they were probably quite threatened by him. And certainly, my friends were also like sort of edging away. So yeah, it was a really interesting exchange that affirmed for me that after my dialogue with him, I noticed that he relaxed significantly, that he was much more clearly appeased, but also felt like, and very visibly from a physiological standpoint, much more much more in his body. And I think that that short exchange, like, I could have very much just avoided him like everyone else, but I decided to sort of, I think there was a line of inquiry that I wanted to open up. I was inquisitive just to see what these skills and tools might, what impact they might have on, yeah, in an extreme scenario that the variables were many, and it could have been, you know, potentially violent scenario. And but I was really pleased to see immediately that through utilizing the skills of just observing his body language and the needs and feelings that I saw and could kind of catch coming up in him, that I was able to interject and try and, well, not interject, but provide some empathy more so, and guess his needs, and seemingly guessed correctly. And it just really, he stopped shouting and he really calmed down. And it was a very affirming experience in respect of the power of these tools and emotional intelligence and awareness. So yeah, I'm super thankful for that, for understanding that, and then having a real life scenario such as that, excuse me, is so yeah, is so on the spot and impromptu. So was very grateful for that opportunity, and
yeah, I can see it really helped you build trust in not only the process but in yourself. And I was wondering, when you were about to jump into the abyss, so to speak, there, how did you manage to, what was happening internally in terms of, you know, there's the immediate trigger of having somebody shouting and being what looks like irrational because you couldn't understand his behavior or predict his behavior, which raises significant emotions for us. So how did you balance that up, that when that was occurring for you, and being in a space where you could actually guess the person's needs? Because if you're too caught up in your own emotional activity, it becomes very hard to do that for the other person. How did you navigate that?
yeah, it's a wonderful question. So I had the ability to check in with myself and feel what was coming up, also observe what was going on around me with my friends and their interest to avoid this person, and collectively at the same time observe this individual that was yelling that I was planning to engage with. And I had that an opportunity to then check back in internally after all of that, to just see what was coming up and the level of fear or anxiousness or danger that I was feeling. And thankfully it wasn't so extreme and overpowering. I definitely observed it being there, and then I was able to sit with it for a second and just understand, like, settle into this. Yeah, I had a feeling of comfort after I observed it, to know for sure that I wasn't, you know, that there was a good chance that I wasn't going to be in danger if I engaged myself with this person. And that certainly the feeling of being inquisitive around the engagement was also there too. So in terms of how I balanced it, yeah, certainly in a very short moment, having the ability to be fairly zen present with my emotions, and just from an observational standpoint, check in and know that there was enough within me as well to be emotionally and empathetically available for this person once I engaged with them too, that I wasn't so overflowing with fear or anxiety. So yeah, there was a few indicators within me that I was able to check against, just to make sure that I was ready to kind of take that next step. And certainly once I knew that I wasn't being overpowered, that I had space for this person, and that I had enough interest from an inquisitive angle to engage with them, that I went ahead and engaged. And the rest was a wonderful experience. So much.
Yeah,
So as just as having that, having those skills and tools verified was really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And I imagine once you got over that initial set of emotions around not knowing what was going to happen, it became, and you saw it working, it became easier to be empathic with him and to connect to his feelings and needs.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And in my experience, thinking back to that process, just speaking to your question, I started to engage this gentleman in eye contact, and I could see, just leading up to the moment where I had a guess at his needs and to sort of shift the energy. I could see that we were connecting eye to eye, and that there was, I could see that he sensed, he was feeling more calm with the engagement, and that over the period of only 20 or 30 seconds, very short moment of time in the engagement, I could see that he was feeling more comfortable with me, and that allowed me to feel more affirmed in my view of what I was feeling, and my willingness to engage with him further.
Truly inspiring story, Narayan, to dive in there and to use the feelings and needs approach from NVC, nonviolent communication, and have it work. Just sort of underlines the power of the technique. And I've always enjoyed that story, and I've told many people. So thank you so much for sharing it, and many more people are going to hear about it now.
Great. Yeah. Very happy to share that. And it's been equally affirming for me, like I've said a few times. It's a skill and a toolkit that can be utilized in so many different scenarios, and actually works. And it's hard to go past that, the power of it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Narayan.
Pleasure. Thanks, Herbert.